Cheap and easily accessible dopamine is ruining your life, and here's why. So I want you to imagine dopamine as a swimming pool, and you are the most motivated and happy when that swimming pool is full, right? Full right to the edge of the swimming pool. And when you do something that is pleasurable or very motivating, or you feel like you really want to do that thing, and cave in, and like your willpower's low and you just really want to do that thing, you get a huge wave in that swimming pool. And the wave is sometimes so big that when it comes crashing back down, a bunch of water from that pool actually spills out the sides and is lost forever. And this is how dopamine works. When your dopamine is at baseline, when the pool is just full, you feel fine, you feel good, and then you do that one thing that's really pleasurable or you're really motivated to do, and you have a big spike in dopamine, the wave, and that comes down and crashes and water spills out of the pool, and the pool actually drops, like the level in that pool drops down. And what could cause these big waves in your dopamine? So mainly things like drugs, alcohol, porn, watching Netflix, doom scrolling, the kind of dopamine activities that release a lot of dopamine that you and me are very accustomed to doing, right? Just pulling out our phone and scrolling through Instagram, or watching porn, or something like that, or taking drugs, or going out for drinks with your mates, right? All these things are really high in dopamine and very motivating to do because they're pleasurable, right? They're fun. And when you do something that's fun, your brain rewards you with dopamine, which makes you want to do it again. So why is this actually a problem? Well, when you have a huge wave, a huge spike in dopamine, water comes out the sides of the pool, and the pool actually drops, right? The level of water in the pool decreases because you've lost some of the water that comes out of that pool. The next time you do that task again, and you watch some more porn, and the next day or whatever, and then a huge wave comes again, crashes down, and even more water spills out, and again and again. And day by day, the pool just slowly drains. So your baseline dopamine level drops dramatically. To have the same kind of pleasure and enjoyment from that same thing, like scrolling through social media or playing video games, we have to do it more and more so that we get a bigger wave, so you can try and fill that pool artificially again. But the pool's empty, right? There's no water in that pool. So it's really hard to get the same kind of level of dopamine hit as when you first did that thing. Remember when you first ever downloaded social media? I remember when I had my first ever phone that could connect to the internet back when I was like 10 or 11 years old or something, right? And I remember first ever getting Instagram, first ever scrolling through, following my first couple accounts, and it felt really new and novel and exciting. And I still remember the first time I ever, got into playing video games like GTA 5, for example, right? The first time I ever bought GTA 5 when I was like 15, I was way behind my friends at the time who had already been playing it for a long time, and I was just getting into it, and it was really exciting, it was really fun. And it's never quite the same, is it? You see videos on YouTube of why do games not feel as fun as they used to be? And it's kind of targeted towards people my age who are early to mid 20s, right? When we used to play games all the time as a teenager, and now they're just not as fun anymore. So what happens then when you spend day after day after day just saturating your dopamine release, and you're constantly releasing dopamine throughout the day? What happens when you don't give yourself a break? Well, this is what happened to me. And this is what still sometimes happens to me. Even though I've been on self-improvement for nearly 4 years, I still go through periods where I get a little bit addicted to dopamine again, and I might just start, scrolling through YouTube shorts, or I might even play a bit of video games here and there, nowhere near as much as I used to, but that can still happen to me. And when I go into them cycles, I end up creating these big waves in my dopamine pool, and then my dopamine slowly goes down. And it's the same scenario for so many thousands of young people, especially who are about my age, who are constantly oversaturating the brain with cheap and easily accessible dopamine. And I feel like this is one of the main problems. So why is this a problem? Well, going back to the swimming pool analogy, if you constantly create big waves in your swimming pool of dopamine, you slowly empty the water out of that pool, and the pool drains. Now, your baseline dopamine is kind of how, I guess, happy and motivated you feel doing nothing. So just existing and being yourself that's kind of your baseline dopamine, right? And then when you constantly pile on cheap dopamine, like scrolling through TikTok or something, then when you stop doing that activity and you're not creating those big waves of dopamine anymore, and you realize that your pool is actually empty, right? Your baseline dopamine is really low, that's when people can start to feel sad, unmotivated. It makes you feel like you don't want to do anything. And if you do this for years and years and years, you end up becoming depressed. And a lot of people who are depressed, it's because they have completely drained their dopamine pool. So when they don't do anything that's fun, or they don't scroll through TikTok, or they just, they totally stop doing everything that they enjoy, that is when they don't have any dopamine to keep them going. They have to continuously use drugs or abuse alcohol or play video games, and they're locked in that cycle. They can't get out of it, because as soon as you're not creating those dopamine peaks anymore, all you experience is the big dopamine trough that you've created for yourself. And that's a really sad situation, and it's a situation that a bunch of people are in. Pretty much everyone that I know is at this very low dopamine level, and they constantly need to spike it somehow, either by going out drinking all the time, or they need to constantly be playing video games, or they need to constantly be on social media. Like, they can't just be themselves, like not doing anything. Like, they couldn't do what I'm doing now. Like, there's nothing necessarily super fun about me recording this video right now. I want to record this video because I want to be productive, I want to feel productive, and I want to make content, right? This is what I want to do. But there's nothing really super fun about this. I'm not getting a ton of dopamine release from making this video and talking about this topic, which I know quite a lot about, to you, right? It's not super fun for me. But the only reason I'm able to do it is because my dopamine levels aren't so low that I'm unable to do it, right? That I'm unmotivated to do it. But I guess that's what discipline is, right? Discipline is doing something that you don't have to do, and you just do it because you want to do it, even if you might not really find it that fun, right? Going to the gym or going for a run. And that's kind of what me doing this YouTube channel is. It's just discipline. But some people have such a lack of motivation and such low amounts of dopamine that they don't have the discipline required to just go out there and fix their dopamine levels. So rather than me just telling you how negative this situation is and how many people are suffering from it, I'm just going to give you some advice on how you can actually improve your dopamine levels and get out of this spiral that a lot of people are locked in, that you're probably locked in right now. So dopamine is a hormone, and it works in a very similar way to testosterone. And the way testosterone works is your body naturally produces testosterone, and then when you take steroids, testosterone is brought in from the outside. So your body no longer needs to produce it by itself. And dopamine, being a hormone, actually works the same way. So when you're constantly spiking your dopamine with fun, pleasurable things like watching porn and scrolling through social media, the best way to actually get your body to produce it again naturally is to come off of doing those things. And what do we call this? We call this a dopamine detox. And it's the same with bodybuilders who take steroids, right? They take steroids, and then when they stop taking steroids, they no longer produce their own testosterone, so they find it really difficult and they get a bit depressed, and they go on, post-cycle therapy. They come off steroids, and then their body slowly, naturally starts to build back up to make its own hormones, and that is the same for dopamine. So we need to go on a dopamine detox. This is something that you're not going to have to do once. You're going to have to do it multiple times throughout your life, right? I did this years ago when I initially stopped playing video games, deleted social media, and got really into self-improvement, and then I've come on and off and kind of gone back into old habits and had to come out of them again. But coming out of old habits, how do you do that? It's really simple. You just need to stop doing it. And this is where willpower comes in. So there's 3 key words there, just to go off on a bit of a side tangent. That is kind of the foundations of just self-improvement in general. I might make a separate video on all 3 terms just to kind of explain them better. But we've had motivation, discipline, and willpower. And the 3 are really key to understand in just to improve your life in general, right? All 3 of them work together. Motivation is, how much dopamine you actually have to be motivated to want to do something. So you don't need to force yourself to do it. You could have to employ discipline initially to go to the gym, but then you could just be, you could have fun going to the gym, you could find it really helpful for you and actually get a bit addicted to the gym, and then be motivated to go to the gym. So motivation is when you find it easy to do, you don't need anyone to tell you to do it. Discipline is when you really don't want to do it, but you're going to do it anyway. And willpower is the ability to resist motivation, right? When you're really motivated to do something, but it's bad for you, and you have the willpower to not do the thing. So those 3 are really important. But yeah, onto willpower. This is how you actually complete a dopamine detox, right? It's just willpower. It's how much do you want to get out of this cycle? I've explained the cycle to you. I've explained the swimming pool analogy and how your swimming pool is probably barren with no water in it because you've been constantly spiking it with these huge waves. And now you just don't find shit fun anymore, right? You don't find scrolling through TikTok that enjoyable, but you still do it anyway. You don't really find games that fun anymore. It's just a little bit of escapism, but you kind of just play them anyway, but you never find them as fun now as what you used to find them. And you're going to convince yourself that it's because you've unlocked all the achievements and all the characters in the game or whatever. That's what I did. But then I realized that actually, no, it's just because I have completely drained my dopamine levels and I don't find this shit fun anymore. You have to keep ramping up the kind of level of intensity from that thing to find it more fun, right? You know, like when you watch porn, you have to watch more and more fucked up porn to find it enjoyable. It's basically the same thing. Like, willpower is going to be needed here to stop doing these bad habits. So what are some quick tips I can give you just to do this? Well, for me, it was the hardest one by far was coming off social media, okay? I used to be completely addicted to social media. For me, it was mainly Instagram. I was kind of addicted to social media before TikTok really became a thing. And the very simple advice here, just delete social media. I've got an entire school community course. It's completely free. It's the top link in the description, and there's a course there where I've got like these Loom recordings where I go through on my computer and just literally give you all the advice and everything I know about social media and how to come off of it. It's literally just dedicated to like people who are addicted to social media, so you can go check that out if you want. But yeah, literally just delete social media if that's a problem for you, right? That's going to be a great way to get rid of some dopamine. Another one is music, right? This is one that not a lot of people talk about, but I find if I listen to music throughout the whole day, like when I'm at work, I've got my headphones on, when I'm in the car, I've got my speaker on, cutting out music was actually a huge benefit to me, and it just allowed me more time to think. When you listen to your favorite songs, that releases dopamine. Like, even if it's something that seems harmless, like, you know, in the self-improvement space, video games are often talked about as being quite harmful to the mental health. Social media is talked about being quite harmful to your mental health, but no one talks about music. And music is just a source of dopamine, a source of cheap, easily accessible dopamine. So maybe when you're in your car, rather than listening to music, maybe listen to a podcast. Or maybe when you're on a walk with your headphones on, rather than listening to music, just try listening to a podcast or an audiobook. That's what I've started doing. I've started learning a new language actually, which is something that I'm really involved in, and I'd really enjoy it actually. I've never tried to learn a new language before. I just randomly decided I'm going to learn a new language, and yeah, that has been quite fun. I've enjoyed it, right? And again, that could be, maybe that's a dopamine source, I don't know. But I've been doing that instead of listening to music. Little things like this, right? Video games is a tough one, to be honest with you, because I dip in and out of playing video games. You know, there's times when I'm super productive with the YouTube channel, with like my other business, and I'm just really productive with like getting content out and getting back to client emails and working on Google Ads and stuff like that. And then there's other times where I'll come home, like it's a Monday night, and I'll just hop on PS4, right? I'll just hop on GTA or hop on Red Dead or something like that, rather than doing the work, right? Because I know I need to record videos, and sometimes I'll dip back into video games, and that's a problem, and that's something that I've had to contend with my whole life. And I can imagine for a lot of people, video games is still a huge problem. So I guess I don't really have a lot of good advice for this. The only thing I can suggest, which helped me back in the day, is I just took my PS4 and just put it downstairs and just gave it to my sister, right? I gave it to my sister, put it in the living room. If you still live with your parents, I put it downstairs in the sitting room. And then, yeah, so I just don't have it in my room. It's not easily accessible. I still want to play it, but like, it's just not here, right? I spend most of my time in my room, and if my PlayStation isn't in my room, then I can't play it. And then obviously the most difficult one for guys is going to be porn, right? If you're a horny little bastard like me, you're going to be potentially watching porn, right? This is something I've not done in a long time, to be honest with you, just because that was kind of a big key one for me that I really didn't want to do anymore, because not only is that like a dopamine cheap way of accessing dopamine, it's also a huge spike of dopamine as well compared to like video games and social media, which is kind of it's a spike, but it's not it's kind of a longer spike because you're on it for longer, whereas porn is this like huge sharp spike which comes with a huge splash. So thinking back to swimming pool analogy, there's going to be a bunch of water comes out of that, and like I know personally a bunch of guys who are self-aware of the fact that it's making them like sad, like they feel unhappy because they're watching so much porn. So that would be one that I would suggest you definitely don't do. But again, it's so easily accessible because it's just like on the internet. So I don't really have any advice for this. The only piece of advice I would give you, which helped me, is turning your phone onto grayscale. You may have heard this advice before, but go into your settings, accessibility, and then it's in display. This is on iPhone. I don't know how you do it on like Android or whatever, it'll be similar. And then you go into accessibility, and then there's like color scale, and then you can press it on grayscale. This is going to make your phone black and white. And yeah, it's going to make your phone more boring to look at. So I guess maybe you won't be as tempted to go watch porn, but I guess that's the only advice I've got for that. But yeah, just you know, the advice I'm giving you now will help you, but it is, like, all I can say is it's just going to take some willpower. Like, you're going to have to just employ a bit of discipline and willpower to just have a dopamine detox. But what's going to happen is when you actually go through with a bit of a dopamine detox, and I'm not talking about, you know, 1 month where you go like monk mode and lock yourself away from your friends. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about the basic shit, right? Little things here and there. When you actually go on a dopamine detox, what you're going to find is that you're naturally going to start feeling a bit better. For the start, you might just genuinely be really bored and have nothing to do, and that's why I would replace it with like going to the gym, going for a walk, listening to podcasts, learning a new language, just trying something new to replace the old habits. That's a good habit. That's not necessarily a dopamine release. Maybe just do something that's difficult, right? Learn a new skill that's difficult, become a content creator, put your ideas out to the world, and just try something new, maybe get into art or something like that. Just try something that is going to replace what you would have usually spent your time just scrolling through Instagram or something. And then once you replace that, and you know, it's going to be hard for the first, you know, couple of weeks, like I said, you're going to start naturally feeling a bit more motivated. You're going to start feeling better, just generally. You're going to wake up and just feel like you want to do stuff that's a bit healthier and more motivating to do, right? If you've got like some kind of side business or content creation or whatever it is that you do, you're going to feel more motivated to do that. And that's because your swimming pool of dopamine is going to naturally start to rise up again, because there's not those big waves of easily accessible dopamine that is happening in the swimming pool that's going to be emptying the water out. You're going to be replacing dopamine faster than you are using it. So you're going to naturally just build up more dopamine and feel better and feel more motivated. And that's just going to unlock this potential in you that you won't know that you had. Because for me, listen, I was just the same as you, just a normal dude who, you know, went to school, has a group of friends, got a normal 9-to-5 job that I still work at. I would have never thought back in the day that I would have a YouTube channel. I mean, I know it's not a big YouTube channel, but it's still quite an achievement. Like, I remember struggling to get to 100 subscribers, and now I'm on like over 1,000 subscribers. I would have struggled to ever speak to a stranger and let alone have them as a client. Like, I've got clients now who pay me to do Google ads for them. This is not something that I would have ever thought I would have been able to achieve just 2 years ago. And you know, ever since kind of cutting down on my, one social media because I deleted it, and then video games, and then porn, just cutting out the cheap, easily accessible dopamine has allowed me to achieve these things that I would never have thought I'd have been able to achieve before. So who knows, you know, if you can just cut this kind of stuff out, this cheap dopamine, think of it, if it's easy to access and it makes you feel very good and it's like very motivating to do, but it's so easy to access, it's probably cheap dopamine. And if you feel good and feel motivated to do these things constantly throughout the day, it's probably not good for you, right? If you're constantly using up your dopamine, constantly want to play video games, constantly want to watch porn, you constantly want to scroll through your phone, that's cheap, easily accessible dopamine. And the more of those habits that you can cut out, the better you're going to feel, right? In the short term, you'll feel shit, you'll feel a little bit depressed, because remember, your swimming pool is empty. But the longer and longer you can leave it, and the more and more willpower you can employ to just fight through that, you're going to naturally start feeling a lot better and a lot more motivated. Right, bro, thank you so much for watching the video. Hope you found that helpful. Yeah, I will see you in the next video.